Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Geek Authority Show. I'm your host, Lorenzo Marchessi. And once again, this is the show where we get to talk to all kinds of amazing, talented, and fascinating people. Actors, writers, producers, directors, cosplayers, you name it, got it. Today we have an extra special guest, my first musician slash producer and publisher of music. So he's got his own studio, he's got his own recording company, and his name is Garrett Lofgren. Garrett, hello. Thank you.
How's it going? My pleasure, Lorenzo. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you're my first person of the musical arts. So let's start a little bit with your background.
Sure.
Did you pop out of the womb playing the guitar, or when did it all start?
Almost. I think when I was 4 or 5, I got like one of those little children pianos that maybe has like, 2-3 octaves and it's really small and the keys sounded terrible. Yeah, exactly. But it's really interesting if you start with piano. Music really is like in black and white. You see the natural notes, the ABCDs, and you see the sharps and flats and the black keys. So understanding music, starting with piano, man, I'm grateful that it was there. I didn't start with piano lessons or anything, but that was like the first instrument that was kind of put in my hand, and I'm grateful for it.
And at that age, you got it. You got the whole musical.
Oh man, not like prodigy level or anything like that, but I could certainly fake like I was playing pretty good. And
where are you from? Where are you from?
I was born here in Los Angeles, technically Azusa. My parents met here. My dad was from Wisconsin. My mom was from Chicago, but most recently through Houston. Yay. But they met in California. Yeah, respect all those.
I'm from Chicago.
Oh no, that wasn't at the Chi-Town, windy, huh? All right, that's cool.
You can keep the weather. I like it.
I hear that, man. But yeah, so they met here. I was born in Azusa, so just outside of LA, though my parents lived in LA. They wanted to have natural childbirth, so they went to a clinic out of town, honest to God truth. But I was born in Azusa, lived here till I was 3. My parents separated, and my mother moved closer to Houston to be kind of close to grandmother, so we'd still have like a good family center. And from 3 to 10, I would kind of bounce back and forth between Texas, Houston area, and Los Angeles area. After 10, I just stayed in Texas, graduated college close to 30, and then came out here. I've been out here since.
Wow. So at what point did you pick up an instrument and start learning it? High school, college, after?
Yeah, I did take piano lessons when I was about 10 or so. I played saxophone starting in junior high. So like in the junior high, pep band, and we'd play like football games and stuff like that. So I did saxophone during junior high. In high school, my sophomore year, we were like a military marching band. So kind of like A&M, when they come to corners, they'd all like snap, pop the turns and whatnot. So it's a particular style. It's not as popular. Most of it's like corps style, where you kind of can walk anywhere you want on the field. This is very much like, military parade type stuff.
Right.
Really cool. But the point was, the band, for the size of the band, they needed 8 tuba players. There was only 4 at the time. So they needed to recruit 4 people who could switch over to play tuba, and they had to be people who could march particularly good and be strong enough to bring that tuba around, and kind of pop the corners. This is a Cleveland high school band, Royal Braves marching band. That's what's up. Mm-hmm. For real. So my buddy happened to be the section leader. So he was the first chair of the tubas, and I was third chair. And again, I'm a sophomore, so there were people who were older than me, who were better than me. I knew I had no chance at being first chair if I was on saxophone, but I could hang out with my buddy, learn tuba, and also, pop the turns. And no offense to any other instruments, the 2 most fun, from my experience, 2 most fun groups to be in the marching band are the tubas and the drum section. They have the most fun. They always put them up in the back. They always act foolish. We stay late in the pep rallies and play like Gangster's Paradise and shit and stuff for people. So it's that's the good section to be in, as far as I'm concerned. But so I switched over and started to learn playing bass, which is kind of cool. As a saxophone, I'm understanding melody, and I'm playing a woodwind instrument, and I'm reading treble clef. To have to switch over to bass, I had to learn how to use the lips on a brass instrument which is a totally different technique from, biting a reed to, flapping your lips. It's totally different process here. So I had to learn how to do that. It's a different way of using fingerings. There's only like 3, buttons on a tuba. I'm playing 217 different combinations on a saxophone. But it taught me how to play rhythm. And I will absolutely say for the first 3 years I played in high school up to the first year in college, I would actually have like the fingerings. If it was first, second, and third, or first and third, I'd have that written under the music. So I could hear how it's supposed to go. I knew how to do that with my lips. I would need to see the kind of programming until I, 2 or 3 years of doing that, and I figured out how to play all the notes. But yeah, I literally had like a key. That's first and third for that note. This one's first and second. This one's open. Pretty wild. Didn't really introduce.
Did you start with acoustic?
Acoustic guitar. Acoustic guitar is what I would play in the class. Everybody would have an acoustic there, but I pretty much immediately bought an electric guitar and a little amp, so I could make all the funny sounds at the house. But so if you say G to me, it means something on a saxophone. I know where to put my fingers there. I know where to do that on a bass guitar. So it's really just about kind of connecting the dots. So it's great if you focus in on one instrument. Just know that any instrument you add to your repertoire, you're already starting from a really solid place of understanding. And again, that
includes reading music too. You could read any piece and adapt it to whatever the instrument is, right?
Yeah, and it gets really weird because like a alto saxophone is an E flat, so it's the instrument itself is tuned in a specific. I don't want to get weird into music theory, but basically, if I say play a C, if I'm talking to a saxophone, if I say play a C, he's playing a C, but he's on an E flat instrument. If I talk to an entire band and I say, I need you to play a C, I'd say, hey guys, this song is in G, and it sounds like this. And if I start playing something in G, people who play music are like, okay, cool, I know what key we're in, so I know what technically works within that key. So if I come to somebody and say this song is in G, A, and D, then they know that they will be kind of within this section that all of the notes should work.
Right, and I respect all forms of jazz and music stuff. However, I can never get into Dixieland. What do you think of Dixieland music?
It's fun. I mean, like it makes me think of New Orleans. You know what I mean? So
playing it,
yeah, playing it can be fun. Like on sax. So saxophone's a big instrument in Dixieland music. So like I remember a song called Dixieland Salute that I played probably in like junior high, but it was like like a medley. So it was like maybe 3 or 4 different popular Dixieland songs that all went together. Well, those were particularly good songs. So I liked playing that song. Right. And they're like the saxophone riffs are fun. They're like probably the best thing you can be as a bass player. It's great if you can do flashy stuff. It's awesome. But a true bass player probably should know that their job is to make everybody else sound good by just being right on time so everybody else can shine. And every now and then do like a little cool thing, like a little walk down or something to remind people that you're awesome. In the sense that it allowed me to see it's like open mic night is all the new talent coming up. So I got to see all the people who wanted to be front people, you know what I mean? Stars or whatever. So I thought I saw a guy named Matt Reed who was really good. He played a couple Foo Fighters songs that were, just coming out at the time, and he had like really good originals. So we got together in a band with him, my good friend Kevin Chuburka, who till this day is most often the drummer that I play with. Kevin Chuburka jumped in on drums, me and Matt Reed, and he brought in his buddy as a co-writer and a good guitar player, a rhythm guitar player.
Where are we in the timeline now? Where is this now? Or is this?
No, still in Texas. Still in Texas. This is probably within, I came out here in 2010. So this would be, I think 2008 is when Falling North broke up. And then for 2 years I was in the band I was describing is called Among the Silence. We were a band for about 2 years. And during that time of being in Among the Silence, I came out, so I'm living in California, I'm living in Texas. I came out to Musicians Institute for what's called Summer Shop. So Musicians Institute is like a top-notch college for playing electric guitar, bass guitar, vocals. You can actually get a degree in vocal performance, but you can also get it in independent artistry. So you learn how to produce your own albums and how to, so it's very much a contemporary rock and roll school. And because it's in the heart of Hollywood and incredibly expensive, it definitely has clout. I learned a ton from them. Anytime you go to any of the major kind of schools like that, you're definitely going to pay through the nose, but you do get what you pay for. All the people you learn from are really accomplished musicians.
Is it an actual degree or a certification?
The summer shot that I did is a certification. More than anything, it's like an intensive 10-day like boot camp kind of thing that they do during summers. But you can absolutely go there and get a degree, all the way into an undergraduate degree in like music industry if you just wanted to focus on business. You could learn to be a manager, things there. But it's a contemporary rock and roll school, and it does have like it's well regarded in the industry. If you went there, people would be like, oh, no joke. Well, I know this person knows how to read music and can definitely do this because they went to school there. You know what I mean? So numbers wise, I'm going to screw this up a little bit, but my impression at the time was there was about 200 people who showed up to sing. That was definitely the largest class. 60 or 70 people for guitar, 40 or 50 or so drummers. There was, no joke, 14 bass guitarists who went to the school for that summer shot. So that means almost all vocalists had to be, 3 people in a band maybe. So you might sing backup on 2 songs and get 1 lead. But based on how many drummers there were and guitars, they broke it up to where pretty much the bass players, each one of us had to be in 3 different groups, whereas everybody else would be in 1 group. And as a singer, you might only sing 1 of those times. You know what I mean? So I had a ton of work really fast. It helped me get my chops up. It helped me build confidence too. Like having to go through that experience, I feel pretty confident that I hate to say play with anybody, but I could be on stage with almost any band and probably keep up. I don't know if I'd shine like a darn diamond, but I could keep up. You know what I mean? The band wouldn't be lacking.
One summer? This was just 1 summer?
10 days. I mean, I've been playing bass. I'm to this day, I'm still learning things. So that was the point, though. Coming out of that 10-day boot camp and having to play in all those bands and having to hold my own in Los Angeles in massive, massive competition. And the people in the audience are all big wigs in studio and having people compliment. I was like, that's the first time stepping away from that. If someone asked me to play tomorrow, I'd be like, almost without question, sure, I'll do it. It'd be nice if maybe I got like a lead sheet where I knew chords or something like that. But I feel pretty confident to play with anybody. And again, I'm good, but I'm not even awesome, man. I'm a solid bass player. But by being able to kind of jam with somebody, I can kind of tell where the song's going to go. You know what I mean? For the most part. And if you have a good lead performer, they're giving you cues to let you know that this is going to walk down to something else, But there's little tricks. The more you play, the more you hear a line that's telling me, all right, this is a key change right here. We're about to change keys. And playing enough, I'm pretty sure I know which key it is. And if I don't, it won't take me but a note to get to the right one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you can fake it too.
You made me think of a bunch of questions in terms of, so let's get the little ones out of the way. So what would you say is your favorite genres of music, personally? Not playing, just what you listen to. If they happen to be the same thing, that's great. But
don't think they are. Yeah. What I play is definitely, for the most part, different than what I listen to. A lot of the bands that I was doing in Texas, that was more my kind of music. And that would be like kind of melodic, hard rock type stuff. That's, where the guitars sound kind of crunchy, but there's still like some quality singing going on. Examples would be something like Tool. If people remember, like Chevelle was a really great band. Those kind of, and like earlier roots in rock and roll, like I really love like a band called Faith No More. But that kind of harder rock, but still, quality singing going with it, I would say is what I listen to. That's not fair. Is what I like to play the most. What I listen to almost exclusively, and I don't do this on purpose. I'm listening to pop and hip hop almost all the time. As a function of being in this industry, the way I try to kind of keep up with what's going on is I'll start my day, or if I'm about to, take a 20-minute walk, or if I get in the car, I'll ask Siri, what are the top 50 songs on iTunes? Spotify, what are the top 50 songs on Spotify today? And that gives me a real indication of, the trends in the market. And again, that's not on the pulse. If I was trying to catch these artists earlier, that's really being, ahead of time. I'm really just kind of trying to keep up with what's going on right now. So I find myself skipping songs, but listen.
What do you think of what you hear? Do you like most of what you hear? You like half of it? Is it?
Man, I think a good song is a good song. So yeah, I'd say if I hit play on the top 50 songs on iTunes, I probably like, man, that jams, maybe 10 of those songs. But the other 40 that I listen to are good. They just may not be my taste. Something that we're seeing a more trend in like Latin hip hop. There's a guy named Bad Bunny who right now is the #1 selling artist, I believe, in the world, and he's number 3 on the charts here in the States. But it's all in Spanish, but it's so good. Even though I don't speak Spanish, I'm still I'm jamming to it. I'm literally taking Spanish now, and don't tell anybody. The way that I study is I am now translating from his album. Because if I want to sound like I speak Spanish, I want to sound like someone who speaks Spanish. I don't want to, sound like my professor who's teaching from a, educational, this is the proper English. Because if I talk like that, it would be inauthentic.
I'm curious. Are you into I don't know how to say this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but are you into the various forms of the legendary singers that are out there? For example, Dolly Parton, Cher, the late Michael Jackson. Are you into the Asian guys, those BTOSPLZYQ, whatever those 5
BTS. Yeah, BTS.
BTS? Okay.
I know who they are. I respect what they do, because that is, in my mind, this is the perfect, like what boy bands were in the US that went from the New Kids on the Block to the NSYNCs, 98 Degrees. I mean, even if thinking Boys to Men is technically a boy band, you know what I mean? But it was just a totally different genre. But in general, I think what BTS is a lot of really intelligent people analyzing everything that makes a pop boy band and doing everything right. The way they market it, the way they chose the individuals. Unfortunately, I think each one of those guys' job is really, really, really hard. I think it'd be hard to imagine how difficult it is, even though it seems like everything's fun and games. They're working 90% of the time. You're
implying that that's all packaged. You mean they didn't get together in a garage and?
Yeah, right. No, not since maybe the Foo Fighters and Nirvana type thing has it happened that much. I mean, there's still some things like Greta Van Fleet is a really good kind of rock and roll band that's relatively new. I think that they're 2 years, about 2 years now that they've been on the charts and whatnot. If you've heard them, you probably thought it was Led Zeppelin, but they were a Led Zeppelin cover band back in the day who started writing their own music. But the singers, the quality of his voice, so it's really reminiscent of that. It's the same gritty kind of Southern rock and roll-y guitar feel to it, even though I know they're from England, but they listen to Muddy Waters and things like that. That's, so much of the sound. But
what did you grow up with? Like your parents,
Mom had Billy Joel albums. She had Beach Boys albums, definitely the Eagles. There were some that I think I appreciate more than all of those, because those are all really good bands too. And the Eagles right now are crushing it. They're constantly in the 1 or 2 top albums ever sold of all time, and that's maintaining even now. You know what I mean? They're still keeping up with sales. It's incredible. But Jim Croce, man, real songwriters, Bob Dylan, that kind of thing would be in the house. So I think a lot of what I came up on was that kind of folk rock, a little bit of pop and what Billy Joel is, but that, hearing those good piano lines and whatnot. I think that's where a lot of my early influence came.
She didn't listen to Barry Manilow?
She didn't listen to Barry Manilow. She didn't. She probably did. You know what? I think she did. I'm not sure if we had the album in the house, but I know she liked Barry Manilow. That's a fact.
And just so you know, he's still recording. He's on his 57th album or something, and he's 74 years old. But whatever.
Still got it? Does he still got it?
Oh yeah.
I believe it.
Seen him in concert last year. Anyway, so that's a good question. Of live performances, I'm sure you've seen a few bands in terms of what's out there. What would you say the most performance blew you away the most in terms of what you saw?
I haven't seen a live performance in like 9 months, man. You just trying to hurt
No,
my
I mean,
feelings?
well, pre-pandemic.
I know what you mean. First concert I saw, somewhat embarrassing, MC Hammer. It was not the greatest concert I saw, but the concert I saw was MC Hammer. Yeah, straight up. And it was before, it was Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him. So it was like the very first album that he released. It wasn't even when he was popular, Can't Touch This. But I was going to Tony Little Lamar University basketball camp. So as a kid, same thing. I went to, as a grown man, I'm going to the music boot camp. But as a kid, I went to like basketball camp. And because MC Hammer was playing the university and they used the gym that we practice in, we couldn't practice one of the days. So we all got tickets to see MC Hammer. So I think my first concert was 10, and it was amazing because it was my first concert. Dave Matthews was actually, even though that's not even one of my favorite types of music, watching the Dave Matthews Band is amazing because all the musicians are so proficient. And if you go to a Dave Matthews concert, everybody there are like Dave Matthews super fans. So they're all singing along. So you can't help but like feel the energy because like everybody's into it. So even though I kind of like Dave Matthews concerts are some of the best. I saw Chevelle when they were an opening band for Power Man 5000 and Marilyn Manson. That was the freakiest show that I ever saw. He like came out, he had like stilts and stuff, and he came up to a podium like he was a preacher, but he was like on like huge carnival walking sticks. Freakiest show I ever saw. But I will say this with confidence. And to be honest with you, I was trying to sort in my head every single one of the great shows that I've seen while I was describing those. I would say experience-wise, the best show that I ever saw was the Chronic 2000 World Tour. And that's when Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Eminem, when he was, just on his second album, really popular, when they toured the entire country. And I bought tickets for the Houston, Texas show. It was going to be in the Astrodome, right? I don't know if historically, the Astrodome. This is like one of the last things that could have happened there because it's now a monument. They don't do stuff there. The intensity, it was late at night. It was like, they had to, it's because it's outdoor, they had to stop at 11, but like 8:30 at night, it's, pitch black outside. They had like a car come out that was basically a go-kart that they built a 64 Impala frame on. So like had hydraulics on the stage, you know what I mean? And again, kind of a freaky moment, but amazing. They had and at the time, a big deal, $1 million animatronic skull that just kind of sat there during the entire concert. But then at one moment, its eyes light up and it looked really spooky. And then it comes out on this huge arm up over the audience. And it kind of looks around and blows smoke and then like cracks jokes, like, does anybody have any smoke or something like that? But it was a huge deal at the time. I believe at the time it was one of the most expensive tours that had ever toured the country because they're having to bring this big animatronic skull and they did so many venues. This was before U2 did that crazy one, where it was like 17 vans just to carry their stage with them. U2 definitely squashed this one, but at the time it was a really, really big deal. And I definitely really enjoyed the show. It was fantastic.
Well, lately concerts have been, before the pandemic, have been big LED screens and lasers and all kinds of visual effects. Hey, I'm curious, switching gears here, as a musician, as somebody who's mixing music now, I'm curious, how about composers, film composers? Do you have any favorites or are you into that as well? Or no?
A little bit. I mean, Hans Zimmerman's incredible. If you've ever seen what Hans' studio looks like now, I mean, it takes up like an entire city block. It's a machine. So Hans Zimmerman is. I think it's closer. No, I think it's like Culver City has one. Right.
Didn't know that. Okay.
Many. I'm going to switch from saying a specific composer. Many famous composers have multiple, and when I say multiple, sometimes in the tens to hundreds of, baby composers who are helping create ideas, and then are then kind of polished by whoever the genius head is. So I'm not talking any of those. I'm sliding away from any names right now, but some of the people I do like Alan Silvestri is really good. I definitely like Hans Zimmerman.
My all-time favorite is Jerry Goldsmith. He's no longer with us. Did some of the classic movie scores for me, and I've always seen the stuff composing. Now, for those who don't know, just curious, maybe you can tell me if you don't. But like Jerry Goldsmith composes the theme or the piece, whatever, and then there's a thing called the orchestrator. What is his job in that part?
So a lot of times, depending on who the composer is, they might write the piece on a piano. So now that you have this song that's completely done on a piano and you have your lead part and your bass part, the person who does the orchestration is the one who would in turn say, well, remember the oboe is in the key of B, or the saxophone, the tenor is in the key of E flat, or the tenor is B flat and the alto is E flat. The person who does the orchestration might be the person who takes the piano music and then translate it to what parts are what. This piano lead that he just played here, that's going to be an oboe that's going to play that part. And it's the person who takes the general concept of the entire song and change it and does the actual, when we say orchestration, it could be how they arrange it, but that's usually something different. That's arranging is when you're changing pieces of song. But as far as orchestration, it's what part is, what instrument is going to play the lead? How do I make this, this piano melody piece suddenly become an orchestra piece? Someone who knows better how I need the tubas to have a droning sound the entire time, just, to have to create this feel. Whereas if it was on the piano, he just hit that one low note, But
the composer would tweak the whole project based on what the orchestrator.
The composer would be the person who actually wrote it. The orchestrator may change who plays what parts, but it's still the same piece of music. But I think this should be the tuba line. This part that you played on piano, well, if the tubas are going to do that here, but the baritones are going to do this here, and the French horns are going to do this. And there might not have been enough information for that to just been in the piano part. However, some composers are going to individually write every single part. And then
you're saying the arranger's a different job?
Yeah. And it may or may not be even included. Someone might not rearrange the thing. It may have been arranged perfectly, but also for format reasons, maybe they compose it for 9 minutes, but they only need 3 minutes and it needs to be a very specific piece of that. That might be a choice in the song, but it also might have been, we need this 6-minute song to just be a 5-minute song. So I need you to rearrange it to where you can make that make sense.
Right, and then there's another person called the music editor whose job is to match the music with I'm guessing.
The music editor?
Yeah.
If we're talking sync, I'm not sure, because a music editor may be someone who actually just, edits the music in the sense that, trims fat from here and there, cuts out the middle and puts it back together. But there is an editor who is matching the sound to picture, and that's what we call sync, right? That those would both be music editors, but they may serve different functions depending on where they're at. The crazy thing about it, the thing about it is, I wanted, one of the most important things you can do as someone who's in any kind of entertainment, for me, my experience, particularly in music, but I'm sure this applies very much so the same in film, is be able to do as much as possible. Me personally, I wouldn't have a composer and an arranger on something that I did because it's a rock and roll band. We're actually kind of workshopping it in the studio.
Cool. All right, so now let's talk about something else you do. You have your studio and you're producing and basically mixing your music, other people's music. How did you get into that? How did you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do my own thing and produce my own stuff and help others?
So thank you. I appreciate that. The main thing I am trying to do is my approach to it is whatever I touch, I'm just going to make it better, right? I don't know how I can help, but I'm going to make it a little bit better. Yeah, I appreciate that.
There he is, right there.
You know what I mean? But phrase that question one more time.
Okay. How did you now you're producing projects, you're producing your own stuff, you're in a studio, you've got your own studio now. At what point did you say, hey, I'm going to get some space, I'm going to produce, I'm going to create or help others collaborate on their projects and make their sound, so to speak? How did that come about, and when?
Right. While I was in school, I'm studying criminal justice at Sam Houston State University. At the time, it was the #3 criminal justice school in the nation because it's right next to Huntsville Prison, which is the hub of the Texas prison system. So they had a lot of information available to them. They were a really big deal for law enforcement. So I'm going to school for criminal justice because I wanted to be in the FBI. And after 2 years of taking the courses, they actually had a program where instead of graduating college, joining a police force that then puts you into the 8-month police academy, what they would do is you'd have 9 prerequisites, and it was things like legal aspects of law enforcement, police systems and practice. But basically, it was, if you take these courses, that would be a lot of the book work that you would be doing during the academy. So you could do the prerequisites for a lot of the education part, and then a 3-month police academy that was during the summer. And during that 3 months, you drive the cars, shoot guns, beat up your friends, like nothing about it. I wanted to be a hero. When I watched shows as a kid, the police officers were heroes. And I thought that, a busload of nuns was going to get hijacked, and like I'd be on the beach and I'd see the hijackers and I'd hit one with the surfboard and I'd be like, surf's up, you know what I mean? And it turns out it's totally not like that. It's, pulling over people for not wearing their seatbelts, but depending on the neighborhood, let me see what you got in the trunk, buddy. It wasn't anything. I didn't see myself being a hero in these environments.
It's not like T.J. Hooker, jump over that hood of the car and
it's
slide.
So crazy. Yeah, I thought it was, and that's my bad. I bought a lot of toys when I was a kid that I was like, dude, it did so much more stuff in the commercial. It's like, yeah, totally commercial. Can you believe it? TV. They call it programming. You know what I'm saying? So they're programming us. Pretty good stuff. So I was 20 and a quarter when I started the 3-month police academy. But I got a waiver that said I could start early. But essentially what that means is I graduated the police academy and I had to wait 6 months before I could even sign up to take the class, to take the police certification. And I definitely didn't want to be a cop. So I came back to school as a theater major. And I did that for 1 semester. And before I graduated this semester, I'm like, I don't want to do this either. Everybody that knows there's a great actor didn't necessarily even have a degree. So I'm not committed to the theater as much as I just, like to act. So I quit school. I moved to Houston. I was there for about 3 months. I was working a sales job. I was making a decent amount of money, but it was incredibly unfulfilling. I'd make money during the day. I'd be done at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's about it. I guess I'll wait till tomorrow. I wasn't playing in a band. I started doing a little stand-up comedy, but I wasn't doing anything particularly exciting except for working and making money, and I wasn't in school. So for the first time that I had seen my brother in about 2 years, he was a college professor, and he worked a little bit in the States, but then started teaching in other countries. So first he was in Chile, then he was in Budapest, then he was in Turkey. So while he was in Turkey, he comes back to Texas to visit mom. I come back, from college to visit mom. So we kind of rendezvous at the house. And I brought my bass guitar with me because this is after I kind of started to play a little bass. And he was doing some singer-songwriter stuff, singing a couple new songs because he always, as a kid, he was playing guitar and stuff. We grew up in separate households. He was 15 years older than me, and we grew up in separate households. Technically half brother, but that dude's my brother. You know what I'm saying? So I don't like to say half brother. But he was playing guitar. I played bass. We sounded really good, and he made the comment. It's one of those things where he just goes, you ought to come to Turkey, and we could be in the band. And I didn't hesitate. I really immediately said, okay. Because he's in Turkey, right? As he's set up. He's a professor. He's got a place out there, and I was not in school, and I had a dead-end sales job. So within 2 months, I got my passport, got tickets. I flew out to Turkey, and I lived in Turkey for 6 months. And during that time, we played at a couple universities. And I should have included this as part of my band experience, but I don't think we even had a band name. It was just I'm backing up my brother. I think it was just like Andrew McDonald, and I'm playing.
Wow.
But the thing that kind of triggered my entire like studio adventure was while in Turkey, I recorded at 2 different studios. I saw quality recordings coming out of really old computers and decent equipment. Average microphones, nothing special, nothing super huge, nothing like these $14,000 Neumann vocal mics that you sing into when you go to some of these major studios. I got a Neumann mic. It's a $2,000 one. I don't have like the $14,000 at the big one. But at these studios, it was like $100 SM58s and things like that. And we were able to get decent recordings. And I realized then, on about a $20,000 or $30,000 budget, I could have an entire recording studio's worth of equipment. So that kind of was the seed in my head. I'm going to go ahead and go back to college, and I'm going to use my financial aid money. I'm going to parlay that into music equipment. What I did immediately start doing was concert promotion. And the way I did that was as a fundraiser for a fraternity. We brought in a couple bands from Houston, and we raised money. We got sponsors from different locations. So I kind of saw a model of how to get sponsorship to put up the money, secure a venue, secure security, and promote. And we did that as a fraternity for a fundraiser, and it was cool. After that, I was like, dude, let's do this again. And the guy who was the chair, who I worked with, was like, I mean, maybe next summer, dude. I'm not really into it. And I was like, do you mind if I just do this personally? Not affiliated with the university, not affiliated with the fraternity. Would you be offended if I kind of took this model and did a couple more shows? And he's like, no, dude, totally cool. And I might even help you with them. He didn't so much, but it was fine. It was still an inspiration. His name was Obadiah Benjamin Klopfenstein. That's a hell of a name, but thanks, Obi. But what I ended up doing is I would go to lawyers, attorneys that were there in this college town. They specialized in driving under the influence. They specialized in underage drinking, because again, this is a college town that, and I hate to say was milking, but again, it was a huge police presence there. There was 7 different law enforcement agencies that had jurisdiction on the main road, Sam Houston State. So there was a decent amount of county money made by taxing students for doing ignorant student stuff, right? College days. So yeah, I would get sponsorships to put up money. I would hire bands from Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. I'd hire a sound guy or a person with equipment. For security, I would actually hire the police, the local police in town. I would hire them for off-duty shifts. But the benefit to that was, if I had an off-duty police officer who was working my event, if there was a noise complaint called over the radio, they would hear it, because they still are a real police officer. They would hear the noise complaint. So then that officer would come inside, tell me, hey, we just got a noise complaint. I would then stop the band. We'd switch over to the DJ playing music quietly. The on-duty police would show up. Hey, it's not very loud here. Hey, and see their buddy, shake their hand. Okay, cool. Hey, I guess it's not too loud. They'd leave. We turn the music back up. And I convinced him that it would be a good idea to let me move into this storefront on Sam Houston Avenue, this main kind of thoroughfare. And when I say storefront, I mean, like, think about like where a Radio Shack was type thing, storefront. I would have an apartment in the back, and then the front would function as a studio. But I couldn't, at the time, I couldn't do construction. I've now built 3 studios since. I can hammer nails, put up sheetrock, name it. I can do it. I'll frame a wall out, put a door in. I don't care. I can do all that. But at the time, I couldn't. So I made an arrangement with John Smither, the landlord, that I would begin paying 30 cents per square foot for this 1,500 square foot unit. And then as he would have his construction guys build out the section, so I could have a live room, a vocal booth, an office in the front, I had the landlord actually build those things with his construction guys, and my rent would graduate. And over the course of 1 year, I went from paying $500 a month for this spot to $1,500 a month for that spot. But by that time, it was completely built out. And that gave me 2 semesters that allowed me to pull in about maybe $7,000 or $8,000, maybe $10,000 worth of decent recording equipment. Not where I wanted to be, but I had, a 16-track mixer, so I could actually record. I started recording audition tapes for the students out there. We met over a casual beer and basically said, there's not enough room in this town for both of us. He worked at the music store, and he had all the best equipment, but was working in the basement of the music store. So it was dank, it was small, really low ceilings. It was not a good space to be in, but he had way better equipment because he had access to the music store. Well, I had an amazing space, but my equipment, 5 or 10 grand worth, So I had an amazing space, but not good location. So over a beer and a handshake, he brought his equipment to my studio. And in 2005, we formed Haven Recording. That's when it started. And we recorded bands from 2005 until 2009. A lot of my own band stuff we did there. I also went to Magic Mastering. So I've always been the kind to record other people, but for my personal recordings, I try to record as frequently as I can at other places because I learn some of their techniques and also see, what I like to peruse instruments, you know what I mean, or microphones.
So this is 2009, you just said, right?
So 2005 is when me and Kevin Chuburka met and Haven Recording actually formed, when he brought his equipment to my studio. 2005. Here? No, sir. 2005 is still Texas.
Okay.
Still Sam Houston State. And I was there until 2009. At the time, my mother had moved out to California. So I did have kind of like an anchor point out here in LA. So I told the guys, I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to find us a location. You guys wrap up all the unfinished projects you have out here. And in 6 months, meet me in LA. And I did. I came out. I moved in with mom. We had a little 2-bedroom grown folk apartment. It was beautiful. It's off Mansfield. So 1 year after I came out here, they brought out all the equipment. I had found a location. Again, my magic number, 1,500 square feet. I don't know why it's always that, but it is. I think the place I'm in now is 2,200 square feet, but there's a lot of walls within walls. There's some sections where it's 2 walls and a separation. So we probably have 1,500 square feet in the floor. It's so crazy. But anyhow, so we moved into a spot. We started building there. After 18 months, we moved from that location to the place I'm at now, which is off of 6th and Alameda in general, but it's like the Arts District. A lot of coffee shops are coming up down there.
Is that filming? LA, right? Not Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Arts District downtown. So yeah, like 6th and Mateo, 6th and Mill is where I'm at. And it's been pretty much complete. It's been functional for the past 4 years without question. But like I literally just started running AC lines. It was getting a little bit warm in the back of the building. We had an air conditioner in the front. We put in our own air conditioning system, Oh yeah, there you go.
This is your studio, right? This is
yeah, and that's
LA.
Pretty current. Yeah.
No, that's your recording booth?
Yep. That's what you call the control room. So that's where the engineer sits. If you on the right, you have kind of like what patch bays. So if I want to patch something from one room to the other room, we use like these patch cables. So you can pretty much plug in anything from anywhere. That's you saw John Hartford. It's a 2-time Grammy winning guy who passed away a few years ago, and the estate. It was our privilege. The estate asked us if we would master it, so we did.
Wow.
We did not get. We were. I thought we were going to get nominated for a country Grammy for mastering. It did not happen, but they missed out because it was really good. But yeah, John Hartford passed away a few years ago. But he's the guy who wrote "Gentle on My Mind," and Glenn Campbell got a Grammy with it. But he got a Grammy for the songwriting.
Absolutely, it looks like a big place.
Yeah, it's like I said, it probably would be 2,200 square feet, but in between rooms where like you can see instruments that get played versus the control room, that's actually basically 2 rooms built side by side with about a 1/4 inch gap between the 2 rooms. Right. And then if you see the glass, where the glass is, that glass is a large frame that does join those 2 rooms, but instead of 1 panel of glass, that's actually 8 panels of glass that are grouped in 2s, and then each group of 2 is at a slightly different angle than the other, so vibration can't make it all the way through. Yeah, there's some good clients right there. Scott Page, that's the saxophone player from Pink Floyd. So like, if you listen to that awesome saxophone solo in Money, that is Scott Page. Tony Levin is an amazing bass player. We did an album called, the band was Water Parks. I can't remember what the name of the album was, but yeah, Water Parks, he played on there.
Apparently a lot of your work now is on Spotify.
Yeah.
Recordings. These are just, now what is this? This is Spotify and samples of the productions or things that you produced, you mixed, or how does that work?
So the playlist you're looking at right now is the recorded at Haven. So every one of those songs was recorded by Haven Recording. If you look at, as far back, that Brian Best saxophone, that was all the way back in Huntsville, Texas. That's how far back that goes. Even though it was 2020 when he put it up, yeah, we recorded that easily in probably 2005 or 6. So the mastered act. So the difference between recorded and mastered, recorded means that they were in our building playing the instruments, and we recorded them with their microphone, or with our microphones. So that's the what they call tracking, right? So that's getting all of the sounds into there. Mastering is once all the sounds that are in there and are nice and level, you got to make sure that it fits production standards. So mastering is the final kind of polish before it's radio ready or production ready. So these are songs like John Hartford. We didn't record those. These were recorded by John Hartford. He passed away, so I could not have John Hartford in the studio, but his tracks were given to us to do the final master. So that's putting all those elements together.
Right, that's what I was saying. So you have the elements of the project, be it an album or a song, right? And then you basically mix them together.
To some degree. A lot of times when it comes to mastering, the mix may be done as well. It sounds like we want it to sound, but I need you to do the mastering. And again, mastering is the final polish. And not to degrade the importance of mastering, because I want everything that leaves my studio. I even, to some degree, even if they're like, I don't want it mastered, I still use some components of mastering.
Okay, what do we got here?
So since quarantine time, we basically had to change the way that we do business in general. I mean, across the board. If I was doing a hip hop session, back in December of last year, it would not be a big deal for an artist to come in with 2 featured artists, 7 or 8 friends, their manager and their producer. That'd be 10 people. Essentially, probably 8 of them were hanging out most of the time while I'm working really hard to get a good mix and somebody's in the vocal booth tracking, right? But that's, some artists like to vibe. So they want that, it's a party feel. We're having a good time here. Now it's my turn. I'm going to go in the booth and rap. You know what I'm saying? So that, because we have to be safe now, we had to change the way we do it. If we have a client in, and by the way, I have not taken on a new client since March of last year, but the people that I know and trust and work with, they know in advance, no more than 5 people, and that includes me, the engineer. And that way there's only 5 people within the 1,500 square feet. We're able to keep social distance. The building requires that you wear masks. You pretty much wear masks the whole time unless you go into the booth to sing. If you're not going to sing, keep a mask on. So we had to kind of change the way that we would do business. I'm not trying to bring in any clients the way I used to. But one of the functions we found is to be able to live stream. So bands can do a showcase where they come in. We got 5 people in a safe, studio. The engineers are in a different room with the door closed, and we're able to track their performance with a couple of GoPros, just standard GoPros that are Steadicam, and we can broadcast live through YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Some artists will have like a tip jar, like, here's my Venmo, so you can tip if you're having a good time. Some artists charge for an exclusive link, so it's not just available on YouTube. You have to get a special unlisted YouTube link, so only you guys can take part.
I like your mission statement, by the way.
That's what's up. I appreciate that. And it leaves it open, and more than anything, what I was studying when I was in USC was a lot of intellectual property information. And it's there's a bunch of really sad stories about people, being done poorly in the music business. And there's definitely some truth to a lot of great artists may not be good business people, and that's why you have to have good people on your team, so you're not taken advantage of.
You mean treated poorly, or what do you mean?
Well, probably both. I mean, there's certainly a very fraternal boys club kind of mentality within the music industry. It's still, there's not as many women that are reaching the heights, and I'm seeing a lot more people, female and underrepresented communities. Haven Recording, yeah, my watermark, and that's our official logo. A lot of people don't know this, but if you're going to have a logo, you want to have a couple different so it looks good depending on where you send it to. You might want to send like a color proof sheet if you're going to be doing like a promo with somebody. Let them know that these are the colors that are acceptable. For me, Haven Recording is black, red, gold, white. Those colors are pretty general. However, if it was like the background you have going on behind you, the black and gold works great. But if it was like, if it was a pink background or something, the black and gold might not look as good. The gold might clash with something. Well, then you could use the watermark. So that's just options. What's this? This is Zoom. That is me on a Zoom conference call with some LACC folks. The President Gallagher, is up top in the top middle. Down in the bottom right is my representative. What's up, my man? That's Adam Schiff. You probably know him from the House of Representatives. He's amazing, and he's one of our district representatives. It's me having a Zoom conference with the big wigs.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah, that's a lot of us, right? That is an awesome organization called Every Town for Gun Safety, and they work with Moms Demand Action and Students Demand Action, and it's a great organization. I had the pleasure of chatting with John Feinblatt, who's in the top left-hand corner right next to me. It looks like I'm in the Oval Office. I wasn't, but that's a good background if you ask me.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. And that's me on a Zoom call with Attorney General of California, not the federal, but the Attorney General of California, Xavier Becerra. Really nice guy.
What are we conferencing here? What is this about?
This was actually talking to LACC students, and this was in regards to or have Latin heritage in there. And there's no rules at LACC about whether or not you have to be a citizen to go to the college. So this is actually the Attorney General talking to folks at the university about what they were doing to make sure that DACA students were not going to be thrown out of the country while they were going to school.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Hopefully a big change will be occurring very soon.
I definitely think so. I would say this though, Attorney Becerra he's filed over 200 lawsuits against the Trump campaign alone. He's working. This guy goes to work every day.
Sorry. Okay, never mind. I didn't say that. Okay, what do we? Oh, recording. She's saying.
Yeah. So that's actually a showcase, and that particular footage was not recorded at my studio, but you can see that's me in the top right corner on the Zoom conference with a background of my studio. Chris Sampson, who is in charge of the pop department, and when I first enrolled, he was in charge of the music industry department that I graduated from. But he left for medical purposes, and when he came back, he took over the pop program, which is actually kind of one of the big deals there too. So, but Chris Sampson was the host for the showcase, and that was really great. I mean, normally it'd be something that was held at an auditorium and students could show up, but by doing it virtually, all the students, we still got to see good performances, and we're still able to showcase all the talent, and we're still able to put to use a lot of the recording techniques and songwriting techniques that they had learned over the semester.
And in the big scheme of things, it looks like you adapted to this pandemic, and it looks like you're still producing and creating and conferencing and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah,
I gotta people who are watching this, who are either musicians or they want to, create product, either music or whatever. What advice would you give somebody who's thinking about it and how to go about it?
But you just mentioned something I think that is probably the biggest thing, and that's being adaptable, being able to pivot. I'm not doing many of the jobs that I did when I was younger. I'm not waiting tables, but a lot that I learned about waiting tables, I can apply in how I interact with people. I'm not doing promotions as much. I might do a show every now and then. I haven't done a show since I haven't performed a show since last March. I haven't organized a show since probably, I don't know, maybe a year ago, maybe December or November of the year before last. But what I learned about promoting shows and organizing shows helps me as a musician when I show up, because I have an understanding of what the booker had to do to get me there and what their responsibilities are. So I guess the main point is choose a path that you want in the music industry. I wanted to be a signed rock and roll guitar player, but that's not what I want to do now. In fact, that barely interests me. It would be cool if it happened. I wouldn't necessarily say no to a deal, but from my understanding now and my appreciation for understanding or owning intellectual property, I don't want to give away my rights to a record label. I would rather not, put a song on Spotify that's only going to generate 0.003 of 1 cent. I got to get 3 plays to get a penny on Spotify. And that's if you don't have a record label, So I think being able to pivot and being able to adapt, pick what you want to do and let that be kind of like your guiding, what you're steering for. But on this journey, you may get pulled in a direction or two. And you may be like, dude, I love concert promotion. But then you work for a big promoter and you do it for a couple of years and like, oh my God, this is not what I'm into. I would rather have a job where I can do this from the house.
Absorb your environment, learn from whatever it is you're doing. Because like you said earlier, your verbal skills at waiting tables will help you negotiate contracts and artists and whatever. So
working for Donor Services Group helped me. I sold cars before too, even for a little stint, but working at Donor Service to me taught me some amazing negotiation tactics that even to this day I use all the time. And not to give anything away, but one of my favorites is if someone puts up an offer, my immediate response is to counteract with half of it. It's like, I don't know, and that's with anything. If I was going to buy a car, there's 10 grand. I'd be like, I don't know, man. It does have a dent over here. Look at how bad the rims are. It probably needs some interior work. Seems like about a $5,000 car to me. And then see what they say, So the skills that I've picked up on my journey didn't seem like they would necessarily relate, but all of it applies to why I'm able to be successful. But the main thing it is, and you totally pointed it out, it's adaptability. And people will sometimes, when they talk about Charles Darwin, like he's famous for the survival of the fittest. He totally said that. That's totally accurate. But the rest of the sentence says what makes humans so successful is their ability to adapt. And that's the thing. Evolution, man, straight up. It's real.
Although these past 4 years we've been doing anyway.
Yeah. some devolving happens. That's a fact.
Listen, Garrett, this has been amazing. I hope I didn't ask too many crazy questions.
It's a pleasure.
I got to ask some stuff because I've known you've been in the music business and so on and so forth. And I've known you for a couple of years and had no idea how much experience and all the stuff that you've done. So to the viewers out there, I hope you learned as much as I do. But again, I wanted to thank you for doing this. This is one of my favorite things about the Geek Authority show. I get to talk to really cool people who do cool things, things that I wish I could do, but don't have the talent for. But I learn from them. It's really educational to know, like with the questions about the music and orchestration. It's like you always want to know those kind of things and mixing and all that. So again, thank you so much, Garrett. I really appreciate the time. And for you viewers, don't forget, hit that little subscribe button. There's a little bell too. Click that bell. It'll send you an email when I drop new videos, which I do 4 times a week. Some of my other shows include the Unboxing of the Geek Authority, where I open up new product for the first time. You see it, I see it, we see it for the first time. I have Talk About. We talk about subjects. One of the best subjects we talked about was the closing of Disneyland and California Adventure. It was so good, it took 3 parts to do. I also have the Mysterious Chamber of Collectibles, where I collect things over the years, and I bring them out of my closet and show them to you. Again, thank you for watching. This has been a great time. Garrett, you were amazing. I appreciate it so much. Let's say goodbye to the folks, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Great times.
Bye.